focus to it, but it's not overly written, and I really like that about it. So, but I also think he was pushing buttons by casting Mel Gibson in the role. So he knew what he was doing, but he also made a good movie. So
Yeah.
it's conflicted a lot of critics. So 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, but all the positive reviews are like, well, they're deplorable, but he's good. And all the negative reviews are like, we hate this movie, but S. Craig Zahler is awesome. It's really weird.
You know what I think, and I don't want to rabbit trail too far down into this, but I think there's a sense of, all right, someone sits down, watches a movie, it's a movie, you know, they take it as a movie. You can become extremely personally invested, you know, to the point where you're like on edge for the characters, even if you don't like them. But then there's sort of the thing where it's like, oh, because character does X, Y, and Z, all of a sudden it becomes like an advocacy for X, Y, and Z kind of. And I think that's kind of this, I don't know, I'll make a blanket statement about the era in which we live, where it's kind of strange when it comes to criticism. I suppose it's
no. I know what you're saying, because Zahler's a libertarian. You know, Vince Vaughn has been outspoken. Mel Gibson's been outspoken. So almost every review, they're saying, well, does S. Craig Zahler really mean this dialogue? No, he does not. If you look at his other, he doesn't. But since, you know, he did cast some people that you could assume that with, but then you also watch, you know, serial killer movies and this, that, and the other, and everyone's like, oh, they're fine. We like these movies. But then you have these kind of characters, and people are definitely. Well, Zahler did say he wanted to trigger people in an interview.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah, and so I mean, he did what he wanted to do with this movie. Do you think that's correct?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think going back to what you were saying, it's, you know, all of his films are very much writers' films. They're written, but they're not overwritten. Even though, you know, Dragged Across Concrete is an epic length film.
Yes,
It's just shy of. No, well, I don't want to say shy of 3 hours by 20 minutes, but, you know, it's like, but I sat there, and he's one of the only directors I've done this with. When I heard about Cell Block 99, and when it was going to be released on VOD, like the first day it was on VOD, I made a point to watch it. And I really don't do this. I really don't do that a whole lot. And with this, I heard about it, I guess, first on the festival circuit last fall. So I kept I was like waiting to hear about some sort of release where more people could see it. And I did the same thing with this. I watched it the first night it was available, and I was totally enthralled of it. I love what he does with character and dialogue, because he's very proficient with it. He's proficient with both. He has a real knack for creating characters who feel lived in, and the actors bring it to life beautifully. So yeah.
Well, yeah, there's dimensions. Like, he allows them room to literally eat for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love the cake scene between Michael Jai White and I have his name right here.
Is
Henry.
it Tory Kittles?
Yeah, Tory Kittles. So Henry and Biscuit, or Slim and Muscles. But so after that, the robbery by those villains, the three villains, they're scary. They are. It's about bad people meeting worse people. Would you say that sounds correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's another interesting thing that Zahler does, is that, oh, well, you think, Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn are creeps, basically, or, just your prototypical abusive, ripped from the headlines policeman. Well, you haven't seen nothing until you've seen these goggle-wearing, spineless, amphibian-looking mofos who just seem to crawl out of the primordial soup, do their thing on some really unfortunate people. Yeah.
So you got Vogelman, and then henchman number 1, and henchman number
gray gloves, black gloves. Yeah.
I love that line too. Henchman number 1, henchman number 2. But that scene though. So after the robbery, they murder some people. They act like they don't show some of the acts, but they cut a dude's. But they castrate him with a knife. They murder people. They shoot Jennifer Carpenter, which is insane. And while they're driving away, Henry and Biscuit, we've jumped away to the end of the movie. Whatever.
It's okay.
That's what we do. And I love though that Michael Jai White is feeling ill at ease, and Henry busts into this story about how at Michael Jai White's birthday party, they had cake, and it was a T-Rex ice cream cake that had just eaten a Stegosaurus. And then it gets even more deep when Michael Jai White's angry that he's the birthday boy and his buddy got a bigger piece of cake.
Birthday boy always gets the big piece.
Yeah. And then it turns out the mom knew that the kid wasn't eating much, so she gave him a bigger piece of cake. And you're watching this movie where, a woman was just forcibly made to pee into a piece of cloth and they threw it out of a window. And then there's a deep conversation about a kid getting more cake because the birthday boy's mom knew that he wasn't being fed.
Something I like about that, Mark, is there are moments where that van is filmed very interestingly. Like sometimes you're looking kind of from the point of view of Henry, looking back at the henchmen sitting in the very back of the van in the dark. And then sometimes the camera is mounted on the hood and you just see Henry and Biscuit together. And it's kind of almost like one of those moments in a movie where a character is like next to someone who's like mortally wounded, and it's like, it's just you and me here. It's just the two of us, It's like, this is how I'm going to bring you down back to earth, kind of. I know things are terrible around us and we might be in our heads, but it's okay. I'm going to tell you this story and it's going to bring you back down. And that's kind of the genius of some of what Zahler does with dialogue and character. Yeah.
I want to see one of his screenplays just to see how he formats them. I know he is the director, so he probably does it. He probably has his own Zahler-esque way because he basically writes and directs. But I'd love to see. I might just Google that because I want to see what his script looks like. I would love it. Does he take a novelist approach? Because I know he writes. Is it? I don't know. I don't know why I said that, but I think it would be really cool to analyze how he writes his scripts.
To that point, Mark, I don't know if you picked up the Blu-ray or have any plans to. There's a really nice, meaty featurette that's like 40-some minutes long that goes into, casting, production, and a bit of the controversial aspects of the film. And I think it's Mel Gibson who's talking about how Zahler's scripts are basically, they read like novels, basically.
Tell me more.
No, I was just going to bring up the comparison that's been getting bandied about the most, I think, with Zahler, especially with this film, is the comparison to Tarantino, as far as the interest in dialogue and character. And I've read some of Tarantino's scripts that have been actually published and sold, like Pulp Fiction I actually have on my shelf, and those, and Inglourious Bastards, those scripts, in that published final form, read very much like novels. The attention to detail and description is really insane and really detailed in Tarantino's script. So I would imagine that if anything, Zahler could, he might be even more detailed and explicit in his scripts.
I love that. Also, I read in your 4.5-star review on Letterboxd about this movie that this dialogue, yes, it definitely pushes buttons. But it's not told in so you wrote, like Tarantino sometimes, his dialogue is very hip, very, what's the word that I'm looking for?
I think the thing, I don't know if it's the word, but I sometimes feel that Tarantino is winking too much at the audience. He's a bit too self-satisfied with his dialogue, and that sometimes detracts from the characterization, because you get this feeling that it's like, oh, well, these are characters, but it's really Tarantino.
Yeah.
Overwriting the characters. Whereas with Zahler, I feel like there's no overlap. There's that distinct separation between the author of the characters and the characters as they exist in the movie itself, as played by the actors.
Got it. And I think that's true, because I was thinking about what you said. So I was I got to do my research about the co-host, and that definitely got me thinking about that. I couldn't. You articulated it better than I did. And I'm putting you on the spot here. But tell me more about this behind the scenes. How did he do the casting? How did he decide on Vince Vaughn or Mel Gibson? What was the set like?
I heard it sounded like it was a really smooth, conflict-free production. Apparently, Vince Vaughn knows Mel Gibson as a friend, maybe, and I think Vince Vaughn shot the script to Gibson, and Gibson responded to it and was sort of taken with the character. Jennifer Carpenter was also in Brawl and Cell Block 99, and I think Zahler's kind of doing the not in the same way, but like how David Cronenberg will reuse like certain actors. He's been using like the same crew for decades now. I think Zahler's kind of doing his own. It's like these actors worked really well before, or maybe I don't know if he's writing specifically for certain actors, but he seems to be kind of building that, this worked really well. Why reinvent the wheel? I'll give these people something new to do, and it'll totally, take people by surprise. And yeah, it's just like, if you really like the movie, I would recommend really picking up the Blu-ray, because I'm more accustomed to just like a 10-minute throwaway featurette on stuff at best with most stuff that comes out today. But this was really meaty and substantial. I can't remember too much. I can't remember as much as I'd like to about it, but I was just probably sitting there with my jaw dropped, just in awe of hearing about the method and process by which he does stuff.
I'm gonna buy this. I mean, I'm picking up the Ravenous Blu-ray because it has 3 commentaries on to listen to. I'm kind of bummed I didn't listen to that for this, but I'm glad you definitely had some information on it. That's really cool.
Yeah. Is that like an alternate region disc then, or?
Oh, which one? Oh, the Ravenous? It's their new one that just came in 2014 by Shout Factory. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, you're talking about the movie Ravenous. I thought Ravenous was like a label or something.
Oh,
like
my bad. Yeah, the
never mind.
Guy Pearce.
Yeah, I've seen
it. Yeah, cool. And then also the one that came out last year, Ravenous, the one that was filmed in Montreal, the zombie film, very contemplative, very good. It's on Netflix, called Ravenous. Worth the watch. I think it's very art house, but it really works. It was in my top 10 last year.
Cool. Yeah, art house is not a 4-letter word to me, so yeah.
Sweet. And what about elevated horror?
I often find myself kind of almost defaulting to that, because it's like, darn it, it's like that's elevated is what I want to say, but I don't want that connotation to go with it, because I'm not talking about it I'm not talking about it in the way of Hereditary or Get Out or whatever people are associating that with now. I feel like that's kind of a buzzword, and it's kind of gonna go away after people stop reading think pieces about it.
They literally saved horror. Here's another line about food that my favorite line in this is when Mel Gibson tells Brett, he's like, oh no, wait. So when Vince Vaughn tells Mel Gibson, he's like, you're still maintaining that gum is for cows and imbeciles? And Brett Richmond says, I do, and it is. And I clap. Because I don't understand gum smacking. I don't understand it. You just got to sit there and listen to people smack gum. So when he said that, and then when he was sitting in the car with Vince Vaughn listening to him chew, I don't know. But they're very patient with each other. They listen to each other snore. They listen to each other eat. But I just had to bring up that gum comment because I highlighted it in red, so I wanted to get it out of there before I did that.
What is the line of? It's either I forget. Someone's sleeping in the back seat while they're staking out the Vogelman's place. And I think it's Ridgman who says to Anthony, it's like, I've been listening to you process air for the last how many hours or something like that.
I love that. And yeah, that was good. And then doesn't Mel Gibson say, I guess Brett said something too kind of sassy to him, and then Mel Gibson's like, well, you probably could have just let me sleep in and the whole thing would have been off, so thank you. So he kind of apologizes to him.
Well, yeah, I think it kind of shows that Anthony is committed to despite he's obviously doubting a lot of it, but it shows he's like, I'm in it, Maybe it's because you're my partner and, but we're kind of in the same boat here, so it could be a lot of things. There's a lot you could grasp onto as far as the actual rationale. Mark, I wanted to bring up, just as an aside, that static shot of Vince Vaughn eating the sandwich for 2 minutes, which is played for it's hilarious because Gibson's just sitting there in the passenger seat. He's a total Mount Rushmore, like just staring out into space, like stoic.